For more than 30 years, a shadow haunted the city of Wichita, Kansas, a predator who taunted police, terrorized families, and vanished without a trace. He was a church council president, a Cub Scout leader, and a city compliance officer. A neighbor everyone trusted, hiding a monstrous secret in plain sight. Until one fatal mistake. A single electronic file on a purple floppy disk finally brought his 3-decade reign of terror to an end. If you value deep-dive investigative crime documentaries, please like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications to support independent reporting. The story begins in January 1974, in the working-class town of Wichita. The Midwestern community was known for aircraft manufacturing and tight-knit neighborhoods. On a cold winter morning, tragedy struck the Otero family home. 4 members of the family were found slain inside their own residence. The brutality of the crime stunned local investigators. There were no signs of forced entry, no clear motive, and no immediate suspects. 9 months later, the killer made his first contact. A phone call to a local newspaper directed reporters to a letter hidden inside a public library book. In the handwritten letter, the perpetrator claimed responsibility for the Otero murders and gave himself a terrifying moniker based on his methods, BTK. The acronym stood for Bind, Torture, Kill. The killer demanded public recognition, seeking notoriety and fear across the region. Wichita police established a special task force. Dozens of officers worked round the clock, analyzing every clue, but the killer left almost no physical evidence. In spring 1977, another victim was targeted in her own home. The community descended into a state of panic as residents installed extra locks and security systems. The killer sent additional communications to local television stations, describing details only the perpetrator could know. He seemed to enjoy playing a cat-and-mouse game with law enforcement, reveling in the terror his letters generated. Yet behind the terrifying public persona was Dennis Rader, a man living an utterly unremarkable life in suburban Park City, Kansas. Born in 1945, Rader grew up in Kansas. He served in the United States Air Force before returning home to marry and start a family. He worked for an installation company fitting security alarms in homes, ironically gaining access to the very types of houses he would later target. Later, Rader became a municipal code compliance officer. Neighbors described him as overly strict, meticulous about lawn heights and stray pets. He was elected president of the church council at Christ Lutheran Church. To his family, friends, and congregation, he was a pillar of the community. In secret, Rader kept meticulous records. He maintained hidden journals, sketches, and souvenirs locked away in his home and office. In September 1986, Rader struck again, taking the life of a 28-year-old resident. Once more, he left the scene without leaving identifiable physical evidence. His 10th and final known victim was killed in January 1991. After this crime, the mysterious communications from BTK suddenly ceased. For 13 years, no new letters arrived. The case gradually went cold. Many investigators speculated that the killer had died, been incarcerated, or moved away. By 2004, 30 years had passed since the first murders. The city had largely moved on, though the nightmare of BTK remained in local memory. In March 2004, a local newspaper published a retrospective article on the 30th anniversary of the Otero murders, suggesting BTK was likely dead. Rader's immense ego could not tolerate being forgotten. Incensed by the article, he decided to break his 13-year silence. In late March 2004, a padded envelope arrived at the newspaper office. Inside were crime scene photographs and proof that the killer was still alive. Wichita police immediately reassembled the BTK task force. But this time, technology had advanced dramatically since the 1970s. Investigators now possessed DNA analysis capabilities, digital forensics, and advanced behavioral profiling techniques. Over the next 11 months, Rader sent 11 separate packages to police and media outlets, containing puzzles, word searches, and souvenirs. Each package was meticulously analyzed. Law enforcement established a secret hotline and monitored thousands of tips from across the nation. In early 2005, Rader communicated via a classified advertisement in the local paper, asking police if a computer disk could be traced back to him. Police placed an ad responding that a floppy disk would be safe to send. It was a tactical deception designed to lure the killer into a fatal mistake. On February 16, 2005, a package arrived at a local TV station containing a purple 3.5-inch Memorex floppy disk. Digital forensics experts immediately inserted the disk into a secure, isolated computer terminal to inspect its hidden metadata. Saved on the disk was a deleted Microsoft Word document. Running recovery software, analysts uncovered embedded metadata that revealed two vital clues. The metadata identified the last user who edited the file as Dennis, and the organization registered to the software was Christ Lutheran Church. Investigators performed an immediate search of Christ Lutheran Church in Park City. One name stood out above all others: Church Council President Dennis Rader. The task force now had a prime suspect. Surveillance teams were dispatched to monitor Rader's daily movements around Park City. Undercover officers tracked his routine from his home to his municipal workplace, ensuring he was kept under constant observation. To confirm his identity before making an arrest, investigators obtained a familial DNA sample from a medical clinic under a lawful court warrant. The lab test yielded a definitive match. The DNA from the crime scenes belonged to a direct relative of Dennis Lynn Rader. On February 25, 2005, officers moved in. Rader was pulled over while driving near his home and taken into custody without incident. During questioning, Rader expressed shock that the floppy disk had led to his arrest. He genuinely believed police had answered his newspaper query honestly. A comprehensive search of Rader's residence and office revealed thousands of items, including trophy souvenirs, hidden driver's licenses, and detailed logs. On February 26, 2005, Wichita Police Chief Norman Williams announced to a stunned public, "The bottom line is, BTK is arrested." In June 2005, Dennis Rader appeared in court for his formal arraignment. He pleaded guilty to 10 counts of first-degree murder. In a chillingly matter-of-fact tone, Rader detailed each of his crimes in open court, displaying complete lack of remorse or empathy. Rader was sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole for 175 years, the maximum penalty allowed under Kansas law at the time. He was transferred to the El Dorado Correctional Facility, where he remains incarcerated in solitary confinement to this day. The BTK case became a landmark study in criminal psychology and digital forensics, demonstrating how narcissism can ultimately undo even the most cautious offender. It highlighted the power of modern digital metadata, proving that electronic footprints can survive decades of concealment. Today, the city of Wichita honors the memory of the victims and the resilience of the families who endured 30 years of uncertainty. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and turn on notifications for our next deep dive investigation.